All right. Welcome, everybody, to the NWO show, your source for everything New World. I'm joined here with my co-host, McLeod, and we are thrilled to be coming back after the Thanksgiving break.
Yes.
So we have an interesting show for today. It's going to be, barring any unknown announcements, which there is always the possibility of getting patch notes, as the general expectation that's been out there is that they try and tell the community that something's up with any upcoming patches or that Tuesdays. Or at least give us a heads up that, hey, it's going to be the next week, or that it's going to be later in the week. And we haven't seen any of that signaling yet, which means we might be getting patch notes soon. So, that said, we do have other things that we want to talk about. We have a full action-packed night of topics, and we're excited to be here. It's a good time. It's certainly an interesting time to be in the community. The Into the Void patch came out prior to Thanksgiving, and has been met with some mixed reviews. The follow-up patch and attempted reimbursement for some of the issues that have come up in terms of housing and some of the costs associated with territories that were going to be refunded, unfortunately, caused some major problems for the EU servers.
Just a little bit.
Just not understating that at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Nothing quite like logging in and going, oh look, I have 300,000 extra gold. Ooh.
Let me go buy everything that I want.
Rough times, that's for sure. The obviously they have since rolled those servers back, and the unfortunate thing is that I believe the trading post is still down on many of those servers.
Yeah, they had to freeze the trading post because obviously, as I sort of alluded to, people found out that they had a whole bunch of money, so they went like, oh crap, I can get all my Voidbent armor suddenly. So everybody was like, purchasing everything that they were eyeing up on the trading post for a while, but they didn't have the money for. And so, when Amazon Games kind of realized that they screwed up with the coin reimbursements, they then realized that that kind of situation is being exacerbated by people purchasing a whole bunch of stuff on the trading post. So they had to put a stop to it, like as fast as they could, to prevent a whole bunch of additional data that they had to kind of chew through, which is kind of one of the reasons why I think it's still down. I'm not sure, but I believe that it is. I don't play EU servers as such, but I believe it's still down. But that's basically them having to sort of just trawl through all of the data that they have and try and sort of roll it back to the point where everybody doesn't have a bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have because of a random fuck up. But then again, part of me to some degree does feel a little bit like this should be sort of like that random card that you get on Monopoly. Bank error in your favor, collect $200.
And yes, but also that much gold is a bit like that much gold is enough to buy all 3 houses, and
just turn the whole of Mayfair and all that stuff into hotels straight away. It's just like nah.
Yeah.
It's not $200. It's like $200,000.
Okay, so the trading post is back up on the EU servers.
Yeah. Okay, good.
It has been for a couple of days. It's been an interesting set of events.
Yeah.
They do obviously, I suppose obviously is not the word to use here. They do have a QA/QC team. That said, like one of the things, and I think this is probably going to dive into the first topic that I want to hit tonight, is that, and this isn't just me making excuses. This is like the reality of things. Is that Amazon's new to this. Sure, they have a staff that are veterans in the gaming industry, but a lot of the internal testing tools, internal policies and procedures and things like that have not really had a whole lot of time to develop. And
you also need a lot of intermediaries.
Yeah.
You also need a lot of intermediaries between various different like departments of a gaming studio, alongside making sure that everything's working from a infrastructure side, from a not just from a development side, from an infrastructure side, from a hardware sort of side. And you need to make sure that obviously when it comes to customer support, that you need to make sure that the customer support is able to communicate well with all the various other kind of areas of customer facing areas, and so that they can provide seamless feedback, which is something that I think a lot of people have been shall we say, rather agitated by when it comes to trying to deal with customer support from a new world perspective.
Yes.
It's been a right pain.
Yes. They definitely, I think we're at the stage right now where they need to start taking a little bit more time. It's no longer emergency patches. It's now, okay, hey, take your time, make sure that more is being fixed than damaged. How long before everything works smoothly is going to be an interesting question. And there's some companies that have had MMOs launched for almost 20 years that you could still ask that question. Looking at you, CCP Games.
There's a few out there. So.
Yeah. Now, I think the important question, and the question that AGS really needs to answer at this point, is when are we going to start merging servers? And obviously my vote is as soon as possible, but I also understand that they need to ensure that this works before doing it. They need to test it multiple times to be sure that nothing is lost in the process, nobody's house goes missing, that kind of stuff, because that would be a nightmare to fix in the back end.
That truly will be.
But I think it's necessary, especially on some of these lower pop servers, to get the population up, because the economy as a whole requires it. It's going to be a very interesting process, that's for sure.
I would like to say though that the fact that we're at a situation where server mergers are kind of definitely getting towards, or definitely at that kind of point where it's becoming necessary. If we had a little bit more kind of leeway, a little bit more sort of relaxing of the limits to the amount of people on servers at any one time, with the 2,000 cap, and then what was it, 2,250 cap, or whatever the hell it is now. If it was a little bit more lenient initially, say maybe 3,000 or 4,000, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation at this point, because there would still be a lot of servers would still have that kind of break point. They would still be over that kind of break point in terms of server population, for it to not feel for certain servers to not feel dead in some way, shape, or form. So in scaling up the amount of servers that were available for people to play, they also kind of made the necessity to merge servers be something that they have to deal with a lot sooner.
Yes. So the other side of this is that it's not quite as simple as just a bunch of individual transfers, because you're transferring over all the company data, all of the, you're creating rule sets for if a company or if companies that own territories that are moving onto a server where they're no longer own territory. You're reimbursing them for the upgrades that they've put into their territories. There's a bunch of stuff that changes. The market orders and all of that. It's a very complex set of events, and it's basically taking many databases. So like if you think about everything as a spreadsheet. So like think of your storage at one town as a spreadsheet. That's your stuff that is stored in this location. You have one of those sheets for everywhere. You also have a sheet that has all of your information for the for your player, on various different things. So your trade skills and all of that. Your attributes are on another sheet. Your trading house auctions and all of that are all in another one.
But they're all connected together. They all have they're all referencing each other as well. So it's one of those things.
Failure
where you can't
to
just
merge any of those
over.
things causes huge problems.
Yeah, if one of them just fails, we fail to merge or fail to transfer over X database. Well, then you've suddenly got a whole bunch of other databases in there that have things pointing to that database that just suddenly just broke. And you need to go in and rectify that, or you need to go and completely reverse the merge and redo the merge straight again, so it can be a real pain.
We have breaking news. New World Update 1.1.1 official
1.1.1.1.
Yep. 1.1.1. I love how companies end up naming these where it's major. It's supposed to signify hey, this is a major version of the game, major patch, minor patches leading up to a major patch, and it's supposed to be how it's named. It just gets kind of comical because some of them will have 4 or 5 different categories for that, but that's not something you guys care about. This, of course, we have not read this yet, so this is brand new to me. Literally just saw it on their tweet shift, so this will be interesting. This week's update is focused on resolving some of the issues that have arisen from our November update. Thank God. Our development team is continually working on improving New World experience, and they thank all of you for your patience and reports and you continue to make on the official forums. Please make sure to report stuff on the official forums. They read that much more often. Also, for those that don't know, the backbone of their forums is a program called Discourse. Not Discord, Discourse. Discourse has a lot of background programs that can be run with it that deal with sentiment and trend analysis. So it makes it a lot easier for them to find your issue and find critical issues or trends of issues if it's on their forums versus Reddit. And as a Reddit mod, I can tell you, you're complaining and all of that on Reddit. Especially if you email the mods on Reddit, we don't care. You're gonna get the response we send everybody of, we're not Amazon, go report it to them. Yeah.
That's funny. I'm sorry, it's just funny. It's oh, you have issues? Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, not my problem. If you're violating the rules of the subreddit, then it's my problem. But
he said a mean thing to me on the internet. Is you should punish him.
Yeah, there's some need for some thick skin on Reddit as well.
Yeah. You're on the internet, you should have thick skin. Also, you're on a subreddit, you should have even thicker skin.
Yes. So, some big ones here. Motes from elemental enemies. Fix an issue causing a large number of motes to drop from elemental enemies. Super. We also removed elemental motes as a reward from gathering elemental creatures, and reduced the amount of other resources acquired from to account for the number of them in the world and the frequency at which they respawn. Those that don't know, you could very rapidly get a lot of weirdwood from killing like the wolves that spawn all over the place.
So I mean,
much
they
more
say
than
like
you could get from cutting down a tree, which didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, they say that like that in practice it resulted in those things becoming less dangerous and more frequent, which in turn caused an imbalance with the amount of resources provided. The thing is, like, a lot of the things that require those particular items requires those particular items in quite significant quantities, and they were really the only viable way of being able to actually source that amount, like the quantity that's required, in a way that doesn't make you want to basically slit your wrists.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's some pretty rough drop rates on some of the mote types.
Yeah, just a bit.
That said, the amount anybody that thought the amount of weirdwood that came off of the wolves being like multiple times more than trees. Probably... Yeah.
Yeah, like I get that. Fair enough. But when it comes to motes, like, that's a different thing. I feel, anyway.
Yes. So, missing horticultural gear. In our latest update, we made a mistake of treating all tiers of the in-game horticultural harvesting gear as future content, and unintentionally removed them from the game. We apologize for this bug that has caused you to lose some of your items and that you rightfully earned.
I wouldn't consider it a bug. I would consider it a misclick.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it was.
Now, some creators out there have taken this as, oh, there must be some future content relating to this gear and the gameplay behind it. I don't know if that hints at that or if it was just a hard misclick that somebody changed something in a database by accident or leaned over, spilled coffee, and everything went to crap. You never really know with these things. So,
yeah, I mean,
if you have lost an acquired piece of harvester gear, you should have an extra rewards chest in your inventory after this update. These rewards chests contain a full set of horticultural armor provided at the highest tier you personally have acquired in the past for any piece of the harvester set. They're also rolling at the maximum gear score for that tier. And be usable at any level to ensure that you can equip them. These items are marked as bind on equip. Like any harvester armor piece you would encounter normally. Once you open this chest, it'll provide you 5 items: a harvester hat, shirt, gloves, pants, shoes. Super.
That's nice of them.
Housing. They've re-enabled trading, moving, and salvaging of furnishing and housing items. Thank God. I'm tired of carrying around 2 beds. Like, nothing quite like going into battle and going 1 second. I have two double twin beds that I'm carrying around. Give me a moment.
I need a bit of a rest here for a second. Just bear with me for a moment. Like,
mm-hmm.
It's like well, I've got a bed just in case I need to rest, but I've also got a spare bed in case that bed breaks slightly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad that they've re-enabled.
Yeah, that's a big one. Christ. That's going to make housing a lot better, especially the salvaging of furnishings. That is so big. So big. It's also going to make it possible for people to actually level furnishing again. So crafting. Fixed a bug where jewel crafting recipes were not granting enough trade skill XP. Thank God. I'm currently in the process of that, so...
we know somebody who literally just finished 200 stone cutting.
Yeah, that's literally been my current process.
Stone cutting. You finally finished stone cutting, but now, thankfully, you can get more XP when you're doing stone cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I have a feeling this next one doesn't say what I want it to say, but recently we lowered the amount of trade skill XP provided by lower tiered items when a player reaches a new tier of crafting bases per skill.
Mm-hmm.
To use metal as an example, when a player unlocks steel recipes, they earn less from crafting iron recipes. We did this to emphasize crafting higher tiered items as you progress through the trade skills, and to also improve the value of higher tiered materials. Our intention behind this, is to reward players for crafting higher tiered items as they progress through the ranks of each trade skill. Before this change, we found players were spending too much time crafting low tier items as opposed to pushing their crafting skill up, crafting items that they would actually use at their current level. Here's the thing, I don't disagree with why they made the change, but there's an ecosystem of other crap that comes into play here.
There is there's a specific reason why people would use lower tier stuff. It's because sourcing certain things to make those higher tier stuff were a right fucking pain in the ass.
Yes.
And that was the reason why they were doing it, because it, from an efficiency standpoint for the time that they have invested, it was more efficient to do lower tier stuff than to try and traipse around and find everything that you needed to do those higher tier stuff, even when those higher tier stuff had, vastly more XP when you make them. Like, you have to understand the reasoning why players are, behaving the way that they do, and they're not doing it purely out of a oh, we don't want to do this gameplay. It's because this gameplay is being severely restricted, and this is the best form, this is the best utilization of our time. That's the reasoning.
Yes.
If you want to reward people for more for doing for making higher tier stuff, maybe loosen the reins on that kind of the materials required for it, or up the amount of XP that you get when making it. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Or at least items like flux and stuff like that, as much as people complained that they were dropping in too large a quantities, I think we have the opposite problem right now, where they're dropping in not enough quantity for the demand and their price is too high because of it. Then again, that could be countered by server merges, creating economies that have much more there versus what's there now. So that's kind of it's a really awkward bar to shift, but it's almost like it needs to be a dynamic thing per server on how much of that is actually dropping, so that people can effectively get that at the appropriate price. Then again, people would probably find ways to mess with that market and yeah.
So there's also an aspect that I'm not sure whether everybody kind of realizes is an option for you, but there's material converters out there that allows you to convert one material type to another material type. So if you don't have enough flux, but you've got a boatload of, I don't know, fucking solvent or something, right? You can't move for the amount of solvent that you have, but you just don't have any flux, and when you're going out to sort of find flux, you're only finding 2 here, 3 there, 4 there, that kind of thing. And you're I need literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands and thousands of the stuff. Well, go buy yourself a material converter. It will convert it will convert certain materials over to convert things like, say, for example, the boatload of solvent that you have into flux, for example. So I think there's probably that kind of thing that a lot of people don't realize are options there. And I mean, yes, you're gonna lose amounts when you kind of convert, but like that's also a thing. And yeah, it does cost some gold, but you have ways of making that gold up. The gold isn't that massive constraint that it once was.
Yes, very much so. Apologies as I find another drink here behind me.
It's all good. Right. So we're into trading?
Yes.
I think we're into trading, right? So fixed an issue where players were not able to fill buy orders from the local storage sheds. So that is fixed, by the way.
That is actually a surprisingly large pain in the ass. So yeah, very happy for that change. Yes. Servers. Big stuff. Technical groundwork for server merges. There it is.
Okay.
They're laying the groundwork. Here we go. Let's hope we see it in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be off to the races. This is going to be good. General bug fixes. Wow, this is a short list this week.
Yeah.
General bug fixes: Void Gauntlet fixed to Oblivion, not going into cooldown if player swapped weapons during skill startup. Void Gauntlet fixed the consumable status effects being cleansed by Oblivion. That was actually kind of a comical one. You could literally take people's food buffs off.
That sucks.
Yeah. Like I see your T5 I see your T5 food and raise you in
Oblivion. Get fucked, right? Oh wow,
that's kind of comical. Yeah. Fix an issue that was causing jewel crafting not to award appropriate amounts of XP for higher tiered crafts. That would have been a nice thing to have earlier today when I burned through most of my tier 5 jewels, but okay.
Always wait till Wednesday.
Yeah. Yes, these are the new patch notes for today. There's not a ton of them. There's the link to them. They fixed an issue preventing players from earning the Lumberjack achievement. I'm sure most of us probably have that at this point, if not already. Or it just hasn't given it to us, and we'll probably all be awarded it. And,
congratulations.
Yeah.
And then it will be awarded every single time that you log in.
Yep. Hey, thanks for the sub. Much appreciated. So, short notes of fixes, but some big stuff to look forward to, and technical groundwork for server merges. That's a huge one to see in the notes.
That's great.
So housing getting a fix. I know some people are going to turn around and go, "Oh, this isn't near enough." Let's also remember that they're people. They're based in the United States, and pretty much everybody in the U.S. Had off. In terms of like corporate cultures. Pretty much everybody had off from like Wednesday through the weekend, so like cut them some slack. It was a holiday. This patch was bound to be a bit smaller.
Yeah,
that's just the reality of this.
I mean, it's the reality of a company based in the United States around end of November time.
Yep. Just as we should expect, the time frame between Christmas and New Year's, you're probably not going to see massive patch notes there either.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to be working. They're all going to be at home with their families and enjoying the holidays and all of that. Like, as much as everybody thinks like, oh hey, they're probably burning a ton of overtime. They probably are. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to take time off to be with family. Like, I think this is an entirely reasonable set of patches, mainly because some of the back-end stuff, like the server merges, is probably a lot larger than most people think it is. Is it all of the fixes that I thought were going to happen? No, but at the same time, many of the economics fixes are going to come with server populations being back where they're supposed to via server merges. And one of the side effects of server merges is that they will be running on less equipment, which means theoretically the downtimes could be shorter because they no longer have to verify that every single one of these servers is up and running with the new stuff and connected to the login servers and blah blah blah. Like, there's a lot of equipment that they have to go through currently, with not a lot of people using that equipment in some cases. So this will be an overall net positive when they start getting the server merges up and running. So yeah, I think that's good so far. That said, we've got even more to talk about.
I was going to segue into something.
But yeah. What do you have?
I was going to segue into something because, like, you were talking about, like, you know, the patch notes being sort of somewhat light because of you know, all the holiday kind of season and stuff like that. One of the things we did see on the holiday season was obviously, you know, people wanting to enjoy their sort of their you know, sort of the company of their family, but also in so doing as well, kind of go, I need to retreat into my own safe space from the family, and Steam essentially broke one of their own records with the amount of concurrent people playing. And we also saw a sale on for New World as well, which also seems to have
dive into that as a topic.
Amount of views. Yeah, because it resulted in a bunch of additional reviews on Steam.
Yes. So so that people understand that when you do something like a sale, you're going to get a sizable population of people into the game. And this is not unique to Steam, or this is not unique to New World. This is also seen in several other games, some of them very surprising, based on their initial reception back in the day. We'll talk about Cyberpunk here in just a minute. One of the things I did want to cover, because this was improperly covered on Reddit, is that there is a difference between the peaks in New World and the peaks in other games. When you're on a global schedule, there is a peak and a valley to your game. When you're on, like, games like PUBG have a different user set, and the peaks and valleys happen at different times. So, like, when you start looking at, you know, top games on here, you know, at this time of day, you know, New World is number 3. Like, that's pretty solid performance. Is it as high as it could be? Obviously not. Like, you know, it's not as high as many of us would hope it to be. But, you know, it's going through kind of a troubled period of getting a lot of the things patched and all of that. Are we going to see a return of these players down the road? Absolutely.
Hey, you know what? It's beating Farming Simulator.
That is a surprising thing right there. Like,
I just wanted to mention it because there is a game that has been referenced to be not as popular as Farming Simulator right now, and it's kind of funny. And if you want to know, that's Battlefield 2042.
Are they even on the list right now? They're down. Oh, they're way down here. 29th. Now, of course, this doesn't count the players who are just on Origin, or that bought it through other things. But that is abysmal to watch that drop off, because I'm actually going to go into this, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this in the short term. 34% of 72,000 reviews are positive. That's a solid hit in the nuts. All-time peak of 105,000 11 days ago, and it has been a solid drop-off since. You know, not particularly good for them. They've had a number of issues. I believe it was the creative director for the Battlefield series has officially left. So that's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not looking great, but like, just to give a bit of perspective, I thought I'd mention it just to give a bit of perspective for everybody there.
Dropping back to New World specific stuff, the patch is going to start at 2 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. So in 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, something around there.
Yeah, that may well be. I don't know what prime time that is. That might be Australian. That might be Australia prime time, potentially.
Yep, they're anticipating 3 hours of downtime, and yeah, so that's good to see. So let's talk about New World, because there's some interesting stuff going on with the reviews of New World itself. So New World, of course, recently had the Into the Void patch in November, where a number of things were controversial. Specifically some of the XP changes, the apologies as I move over to something else here. The XP changes for progressions on skills. High-end farming was changed slightly and nerfed a little bit unintentionally, as a lot of the chests in Merkgard were not dropping what they were supposed to drop. And as weapon changes and balancing that have, if anybody's played Outpost Rush, have basically not turned out the way that many people have thought they would. And many of the pieces of equipment and gears that we thought were nerfed into oblivion, i.e. the Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff, are still very much in use. And still quite effective, despite heavy nerfs. So, yeah. Some interesting stuff on that. But let's talk about the reviews. Naturally, when Enter the Void dropped, there was a lot of public effort for people trying to coax people into leaving negative reviews.
So you can see that in the right-hand graph with the negative reviews before the actual peak with positive reviews.
Yes. So now, being a Reddit mod, I could see all those posts. It's very much a thing. People were trying to in some disingenuous ways, get people to post negative reviews. Like, I think my least favorite of the posts was somebody who was like, Steam won't allow me to post a negative review. Can you try? Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff like that was happening. Now, this is not to say that we agree or disagree with changes in the Into the Void patch. Purely just stating that kind of review bombing, in terms of trying to shift public opinion in a disingenuous way, is generally speaking not great.
Yeah, that ain't cool.
And it's very, very transparent on what's happening. Now, here's the thing. Even with that effort, most of the reviews are positive. Steam's reviews for New World are actually quite positive. They have a...
Mostly positive.
Mostly positive. Recent has been mixed, where 57% of the 36,618 reviews in the last 30 days are positive. With a large spike happening when the sale started, of which people are coming into the game and realizing, hey, the game is playable. Why are these people telling me it's not playable? Yes, it takes an effort. There's a little bit of a, hey, the bridge was pulled up behind some of these people in terms of XP, but you're still very much able to get there. It's unfortunate changes in some cases, but it's also some balancing changes for the long-term impact on the game. So I don't necessarily disagree or agree with some of the changes. they need to play out more for people to understand how they're going to work.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have gotten to that level, got to max level, and are, a lot of people who are doing the review bombing to a lot of extent are those people who have run out of things to do, or in that kind of in that rut of wanting to progress some more, and the only progression really is grinding watermarks.
Mm-hmm.
And aren't
Which
really
I think
enamored
everybody
with the fact
universally thinks sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that system is not particularly fun.
I'm honestly not liking it. Does not drive my desire to play the game at all in any way, shape, or form. And just like making different ways of being able to grind that watermark, it doesn't does the wool over my eyes as to what is actually happening here and what you're kind of tempting me to try and do. So it's kind of like I do see where people get are when it comes to doing negative reviews for that, but like you can kind of quite clearly see with the graphing, with the reviews and stuff like that, this spike in positive reviews as the sale kind of comes along. It definitely is people trying out the game and going from the initial sort of starting on the beach and going through to up towards level 60. That part of the game is good. It's enjoyable. It's the introduction to the world, the introduction to the scenery, and all of the things that you can do and that kind of stuff. Like, it's all really pretty good. It's just when you get to up to 60 that it starts to suck.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially for low pop servers where it's very difficult to find groups. In some cases, there are some servers out there whose peaks are 32 players. So finding a group that is going to go grind watermark is just not going to happen. And that bites.
It does.
That is highly unfortunate, and this is where this is one of the reasons that I'm super happy to see things in the patch notes regarding server merges, where hopefully they're going to merge several servers together and get us back up to a player density in the mid to high range, probably aiming for that 1800 sweet spot, so that there can be a little bit of a peak above, and that
there's a little room for people to come in. Yeah.
So like if they release new content, and people start coming back, they've got a little bit of headroom. That would be highly beneficial. But yeah, so that's
now
some of the
I wonder.
things.
I wonder with regards to the server mergers, like if a large influx of people come back. And server mergers have occurred, and all of those players who may not be active are now all bundled into the same server. Like, whether we're going to get that same situation of like long queue times again. If suddenly people are like, oh, there's a lot of content now, like, and they a lot of people log in that are inactive at this point. Like, they're going to have to watch out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it could be potentially rough, and they might have to offer server let's say they come out with a new zone with a whole bunch of new content, which we've seen in the data mined content that they have Brimstone Sands just about finished. It's like if they brought that back and all of a sudden, let's say they fix some of the critical parts that are holding some people at bay, and people are coming back, and servers are back having that problem after merges. It wouldn't surprise me if they gave another server transfer token and were like, hey, just spread out again, our bad. And what could be interesting is that they might spool up additional servers then, if growth becomes a thing. And that could be very interesting, because then you're going in with a fresh market. And that initial race to 100k to get territory, and like becomes a very interesting change in the dynamics. With a new change in like the politics side of things, which as a company governor, I can tell you is surprisingly deep, and some interesting personalities across the board.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it's there's a lot of things that could happen with the server merges, and a lot of things post server merges that could become very interesting to see how they play out, specifically economies and many of the other issues.
One of the things regarding server transfer tokens, like I do recall, I didn't need time to sort of find the actual sort of the context or the conversation specifically, but I'm fairly certain that there is somewhat official correspondence with New World staff regarding the possibility of a second server transfer token actually coming in sort of December time. So, I'm not sure whether it's going to be early December or late December.
There is a possibility. The latest I saw was a comment that was something to the tune of a second drop hasn't happened as far as I know, or the second drop hasn't happened as far as I know, which is an interesting phrasing for that comment. But there was additional changes to server tokens. For those that don't know, everyone, including new players, are issued a server transfer token on starting. This is so that you can find a place to call your own. Well, the problem is people were creating alts, putting them onto super low pop servers, and going in completely unimpeded, getting high-end materials and using those alts as basically mules to bring in massive amounts of very high-end material without any real risk. So basically what they did is they said, okay, for any players post November 22nd, new players will no longer be getting that server transfer token because of that. Functionally speaking, some people ruined it for everyone else. So, in true fashion.
But I have to hand it to them. That was a pretty sort of pretty novel way of utilizing it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like if you compare like a high population server to a super low population server, going out and grinding for orichalcum and a lot of the higher end materials, there's no competition versus many people going for the same resources. So, yeah. And there's always people that are constantly trying to look for ways to gain a competitive edge over other people that either borders on or passes that line of exploitation, which obviously this was not intended, and therefore they pretty quickly acted on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. That was good news, or relatively good news to see, so it can't be abused, and yeah, because basically what you would do is you would create a new character, you'd get your transfer, and you would start on a server, transfer over, delete them, and rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So they fixed that. But
it's I don't think they're going to need to find some way of finding a good middle ground, because at some point with the churn of players coming in and out, like you can't just restrict new players from being able to potentially server transfer to some degree. Like,
yes,
I mean, I get that people are using the ability to create alts in order to actually do this and utilizing that free server transfer. but like, at some point you have to sort of somehow figure out a middle ground.
Yes. I'm actually of the opinion that they should probably just start selling server transfers. And if they want to create an opportunity for, like, post server merge transfers, to basically just issue people a token that's got a 10-day window to transfer. Post merge or something like that. That I think that would provide, especially some of these people on low pop servers that like transferred there and then the server just died. It would give them an escape route. Hey, for $5, go join another server. But also, I think if a server drops below a certain amount, they should just automatically either, obviously that server should be merged into another server, but in the short term, those players might as well be given a choice of where to go. Especially if it drops below, some of the ridiculously low levels on some of the servers.
Yeah, I mean, if your servers like max concurrent throughout the day is 100, like, oof.
Yes. That basically ensures that you're never going to have Outpost Rush pop as an option.
And I
know even on our server, like during the actual daytime, Outpost Rush is not something that happens instantly. It's something that you're often waiting 20-30 minutes between matches for people to re-queue and new people to queue up. Which, as in all honesty, my primary way of making gold at the moment, that is a rough thing to happen and often causes me delays in my jewel crafting. Or stone crafting, sorry. Stone crafting is the one I'm at like 186, and I'm trying to get it to 200 just so that I can have it done.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a little easier now with the changes once that patch rolls through.
Yes.
Just that little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. And I think I would assume in the December patch that we're going to see some additional, weapons balancing and some other things. Obviously, this patch is not as large as most people would have expected, but at the same time, remember, it was a holiday. They're just getting back into it. I would assume next week's patch is probably going to be much larger, if not, might be their December release.
I'd be impressed if it's a December release. Because it's like normally, so I generally tend to see trends quite often, and a lot of the time when a company says December release, or we shall be releasing Q2 2022, it'll be the last day of Q2 2022, or we're releasing something in December kind of thing, and it'll be the last day in December kind of thing. So, like, I don't know, maybe Amazon Games will buck that trend and release a December patch, at the earliest convenience in December, maybe on the 8th or the 15th, but I kind of expect it on the 22nd.
Yeah,
or maybe
it's certainly going to be an interesting one. I would anticipate earlier in the month, giving them time before the holidays to implement it and to have subsequent bug fixes.
I mean, yeah,
because it's bound to have something that needs fixing. If you look at any AAA game this year, there are New World is not alone in the batch of games that have had just a terrible time in the QA QC department. Like, Battlefield 2042 is right up there in terms of massively pain in the ass problems. As somebody who loves the Battlefield series, I'm disturbed by the fact that I literally cannot play a full match of the game without my drivers failing. I have the most recent updated drivers. I've tried it with the optimal drivers. I've tried it with the our optional versus the recommended. No fix for me yet. I'm literally waiting on AMD to drop new ones. It's bad. Like it's cyberpunk level bad for some gamers that you literally can't play it, even with relatively high-end hardware.
That is so strange, and I definitely can't tell that you're aggravated by it.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you very much.
The bits that I have
and
played is actually quite fun. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the sub. Yes.
Shit, what was I going to say?
So before we move on to the next one,
I was looking at sort of date wise, right? If they were to release sort of on the weekend of Christmas, I would imagine that we would have patch notes dropping on the Monday, the actual patch on the Tuesday, and then basically Amazon Games kind of going like, essentially saying to the staff, you have from Tuesday till when you clock off on Friday to get patches fixing stuff from that patch done.
Yeah.
Because that would be the time frame that they would have if they were releasing on that week.
Yeah, I just don't see them patching on that week. Like, that would be a rough
It would be
one.
cutting it fine. It would be rough, and it would be cutting it fine. But like, when has game development ever done that, right?
Yeah. I think we're probably looking at December 10th. December 9th or 10th is my Nostradamus, Babe Ruth calling the shot. That would be when I would aim for the release.
But you could well be right. But the other kind of thing is you expected a what is it? An open beta, straight after the closed beta, and that didn't really happen. To
be fair, that had less to do
for certain reasons.
Yes, that had less to do with me being wrong and more to do with them having a large delay that was unexpected.
Yeah, that is true. But even so, it was kind of funny when you're like, any day now, guys, any day now, there's going to be an open beta. 3 days goes past. It's like, hey, what was the open? So what's going on with the
To be
beta?
fair, I wasn't wrong. The open beta still happened. It just wasn't when it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
I had to rib you on that one. Sorry, mate.
Knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And that was a fun set of issues. But before we move on to the next thing, I do want to take a moment and thank, obviously we've had a ton of people hit, their Prime subscriptions, their follows, the support is through the roof. We really do appreciate it. I want to thank our Patreons. I want to thank everybody who's joined the Discord and just kind of hangs out with us and chats about New World. We, of course, are looking forward to continually making content. Although with the holidays coming up, that might become a challenge. We might not hit our weekly schedule.
It
in
depends.
some instances, but we will see.
Kind of depends, really, doesn't it? Like when it comes to how, whether we're indisposed or not in that regard. I don't know. We'll see how it is. And we'll see if we can, let you guys know as to what the score is in that regard. We might do a little bit more offline kind of stuff, in which case you'll probably see a little bit more activity on our YouTube, because yes, we do have a YouTube, and we do put our shows on our YouTube, cut down so you can see the, if you're interested in the, the pre-show, you can watch the pre-show. If you're just interested in the actual full show, you can watch the full show without the pre-show. And we kind of make a point to make sure that there is chapters on the VOD on YouTube, so you can jump to whichever section that you're interested in, that kind of thing. So, check it out. And if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, definitely do so. Yeah,
absolutely. And the other thing is, as we toyed in the pre-show, we are considering starting up kind of a just general gaming news and kind of a attack of the show style gaming news show that'll be a little bit more general and less specific to just New World. We would open it up to many other games. So if you enjoy our pre-show content, feel free to check that out and keep an eye on our Discord for any updates on how or where we do that specific show. So
yeah, we did a little poll, like just near the end of the pre-show, and people seem to be very
almost unanimous,
receptive to it. Yeah, very, very receptive to it. So hopefully that is an indicator for the rest of you guys out there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing, and somebody mentioned this, is that we do not have particularly great control of our ads right now on the channel. I apologize for that if there happened to be like a cut. We
do have an end state in terms of how we want ads to sort of be in terms of mid rolls and that kind of stuff, to not be as, how you would say, disruptive when that does appear, kind of thing. So we will get to that end state, and to some degree that will also be helping promote our YouTube stuff as well. So in that kind of sense, it would break up the show a little bit better. It'll feel a little bit more professional, and also you'll get to sort of see on stream some of our YouTube stuff as well. So
yeah. And there's the one of the ones that's starting to pop up more and more frequently is a multi-viewer ad, and basically what it does is that it has you pick what's your preference on. I think one of the ones I saw earlier today was what's your preference on what's your favorite activity in New World, and it gave 4 different exploration, crafting, wars, etc. And it actually does give us bits for people that answer that, which is
that's awesome.
Really cool way to support the channel through just voting on common things. I think the last one that popped up that I saw there was people's favorite pants to wear. There's some strange ones. I'm hoping that they don't get in the way of the content. If they do, we may have to have some discussions on how to best ensure that our content is content first, money second.
Let us know, let us know if you do feel like it's been infringing a little bit too much. But obviously, advertisement space and adverts in general is just kind of a bit of a fact of life nowadays to some degree. But we want to minimize the influence or the effect that it has on the show in general, kind of thing. So yeah.
And as a work from home person, that last poll, I agree, was missing the option of no pants at all. Just saying, they have missed the boat on some of the options. We unfortunately have no control over what those include. And
if we did, there would be a no pants option for sure.
Yes. So let's moving on from all of the fun channel updates. Let's talk about a combination of bad reporting and a topic that is worth discussing. Sorry for the flash of white here.
Is this? Are we going into PC Gamer?
Yes, PC Gamer, the site now run by what can only be assumed to be a bunch of political science - com majors who lack any ability to actually get a media gig. They've stumbled across computing as a topic, and so it is not a thing that isn't happening First, I want to make sure to say that yes, there are phishing bots. They were a larger problem than they were now. As far as 1 day ago, not so much. Like,
the bots aren't just relegated to phishing. So this is the other thing
which is where the greater discussion should happen. Is that bots are obviously bad. It's not something that should be allowed in the game. It's obviously not something that is allowed.
And bots are fairly easy to figure out whether something's a bot or whether something's not a bot. Typically, the actions that they do are very repetitive in nature, and they have a very small subset of actions that they do and they repeat constantly, kind of thing. And they generally don't tend to sort of be able to augment their instruction sets or their sort of like their actions. If they're moved by something, or if some situation occurs where the character becomes out of position from where they should be, sort of thing.
McLeod, can you fix the thing to not? Can you fix the bot to not pimp smack anybody who's talking about bots while we're having a conversation about bots?
Oh,
apologies, guys. Apologies.
All right.
Use an alternate word like automation.
That would work.
Or AI, like something else temporarily. Our bad.
Up until the point where I actually fixed the sort of blacklist and the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in stream elements this time. My bad. Sorry about that, guys.
So sorry, guys.
There is that kind of issue to some degree.
Naturally, our bot is causing the problem of having conversation.
There we go.
About bots.
It should be off, so you can say botting, bots, that kind of stuff in chat now.
So let's be specific when we're having the conversation about bots. Let's talk about what bots actually are. So there's behavior that looks like bots that isn't, because there's somebody at the controls or somebody that was at the controls that is doing something that the game allows. For instance, a player using auto run, where if you hit your equals key, you just keep moving in the direction you're going, and you might run into something, and it will look super awkward if you got up to go take a leak, and you come back, and you're just running against a tree. Like, it looks really sus, but isn't actually a bot. Now, if you see somebody fishing for 23 hours straight, yeah, I think you can pretty much assume what's going on there. With no break, they haven't moved, they only do the little shimmy to stop the logout timer. Basically what a bot is an automated external program that is allowing you to continually do things in-game repetitively, oftentimes using color keys and things like that, to identify like the phishing bots identify the color of the dial for how much tension is on the line. They are not allowed in the game. Of course they're not allowed in the game. But people have been using them. Now, are they going to get caught? Probably.
Eventually.
Should you report them? Absolutely. Should you report anything that is suspicious? Absolutely. If you see somebody harvesting water in Windsward for 10 hours, yeah, you should probably report them. That's suspicious as fuck. Because nobody clicks that button that many times in a row, in a super symmetrical pattern. Now, that said, there are instances like me who I will run around in the world. I do not have global or area chat running, and I am unresponsive when you try and get a hold of me, unless you're literally jumping in front of me for some reason, and then I'll be like, I'll stop and wave or whatever. But for the most part, I am very unresponsive to people in game because I'm just, tooling around, gathering random nodes and, doing my thing. So just because somebody is not responding to you in chat does not mean that they are not there. And there is a lot of confusion on this, where just because they're doing something that looks strange doesn't mean they are doing something that's bad. It's a very fine line to walk, but if it looks suspicious, report it. Then AGS will look at it and go, hey, what's actually going on here? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
did this person run the same route for 4.5 hours gathering iron ore nodes, and stop at nodes that hadn't respawned for the time it would take to mine it, and then move on to the next one that still hasn't respawned and sit there? And like, there's a difference in between stuff like that, because that kind of behavior is super easy to see, but you have to know which accounts to look at.
Yeah. And I'd like to take this moment to say, A's, would you not play New World while on calls and in meetings, please?
No.
So it's like, what situation would you be doing that in? So it's like, oh, I know.
Mm-hmm. It's background noise. It's a way to keep my hands busy and not want to strangle people.
Yeah, that's understandable.
That said, like, obviously there are a lot of instances where there are bots out there. Report them, move on. They will get addressed.
And don't feel dissuaded from reporting them just because you've reported them 3 hours ago, 6 hours ago, 12 hours ago, like a day ago, 2 days ago, kind of thing. Like, I had that same instance, that same sort of feeling, when we were reporting the gold seller, like people fucking selling gold in the chat. Like, every single time I saw them, I would report them, and yeah, fair enough, they didn't disappear from chat for a while, but like, eventually Amazon Games figured out a way to be able to deal with that in a more sort of holistic sort of way, right?
And actually, if you go back and they're there like 2 hours later, report them again and state that this is the second time you've reported them. They're still standing in the same spot. They're still doing the same thing. And that you find this incredibly suspicious. That way they can look back and see, hey, characters got 5 different reports over 8 hours for doing the same activity in the same spot. That's sus.
Yeah, just give them more and more information, like,
Now, the other part of this is that there are players out there, and this is not something that you should do. There are players out there who buy botting programs later on in their experience in the game. That is a bad idea. Don't do it. You can and will likely get banned. Now, just because you run into somebody who's botting at level 50 does not mean that they've been botting the entire time. That is an important distinction. That said, it is entirely possible that somebody could go completely unnoticed for long enough to make it that far. Like,
yes,
it's a thing. Eventually you do acquire enough XP to actually make it to that point. Basically, like, this is the same problem that actually happens in EVE Online, where there's a commonality of not wanting to talk to people in global chat because they're possibly your enemy. 2, a lot of the actions might look scripted or optimized. Like EVE Online, somebody enters system and you warp back to station. Well, is that because you're botting, or is that because that's the thing that you needed to do when you saw them come into system and you're just active at your keyboard?
There's a lot of automation sort of stuff that can kind of seem automated in some way, shape, or form that could, be explained by other means.
Yeah.
Obviously not everything is automation. Not everything is just, an extremely kind of meticulous player. And when it comes to automation, like I also tend to sort of bundle in macroing as well into this to some degree. There are players who are exceptionally good and have a lot of muscle memory that allows them to do a lot of things extremely well. Just seeing somebody being very consistent at what they do, or at the movement that they do, or the sort of like the kind of sets of movements or sets of kind of actions that they do, they string together. It doesn't specifically mean that they're either botting or using automation or macros kind of thing. Like they could just be a very experienced player who like uses that kind of stuff all the time. So it's kind of like it can be a real mixed bag, and it can be difficult to ascertain as to whether it's actually a program being used or abused for the advantage of that player, or whether it's actually just like somebody who is meticulous and extremely skilled. Obviously when it comes to those really blatantly obvious automated bots, it's pretty quite obvious, but like when it comes to sort of macroing stuff, like it can get very blurred and very subjective as well.
Absolutely. So basically what I'm saying is, or what we're saying is that if you run into something that looks suspect, just report it. Let the devs figure out what's wrong, and then move on, fix it, and move on, do your thing, come back if you're in that area, report it again if it's still a thing. Yeah. So I mean that kind of like sums up the whole thing. Like there's not a whole lot that as players we can do about this. A lot of it is they need to know which accounts to look at, and we need to continue to report them.
Letting Amazon know like the possible the possible kind of accounts and the possible characters that are potentially utilizing automation or botting or that kind of thing, like just helps them helps them kind of find those sorts of those particular kind of players and be able to actually put them down on a short list to watch, and it also helps them learn as to what to look for, and how the whole kind of environment of like the whole of like people purchasing botting programs or people using botting programs, and then people sort of where they found those botting programs and who are writing those botting programs and what they can do about that and that kind of thing, and where those botting programs are kind of like like hooking into the game or utilizing aspects of the game which they could change or or augment in some way, shape or form to break those sort of programs and break those kind of ability to sort of understand, for those programs to understand what's going on in the game. Like there's a whole host of things that they can do, and just reporting people who you see who you think are using botting or using automation helps them figure out to watch these people.
Now that said, like again, there's a lot of behavior that might look like botting that might not actually be botting. Like somebody bouncing around from node to node, like if I'm doing a path for iron to go gather, it might look like I'm a bot. I might do some really sketchy shit, like run up to an area that clearly doesn't have it just because that's where I remember it, and I might sit there and be like, where the hell is it? Like, is this where I remember it, or was it over there? Was like in my head and like on my screen I might be spinning around going, did I pass it? Did I, like, is it just not spawned yet? Like I might wait there awkwardly for it to respawn. Like there's a lot of like very strange behavior that people will do that often doesn't translate over. And I'm not saying that, you know, every example of that isn't a bot. I'm just saying that, like, there are many instances where it is actually the person there. That said, a lot of these things are going to be, you know, detecting bots. You really have to look at, like, optimized routes. You have to look at, you know, a number of other things. One, like the minimap thing, actually has some carryover onto this topic on why they don't want minimaps to have item resource nodes, and that's because they don't want players to be doing super optimized routes, because it makes it much more difficult for detecting bots, because players will be running the exact same route over and over again based on what their minimap is telling them to do, which creates some very awkward scenarios.
It's also very simplistic and very consistent as well method of being able to, you know, basically put an aspect of a program to watch. Like, you know, you basically get the program to watch the minimap, and then, like, it has a very consistent and a very, you know, a very simplified version of the world that it can use to react to, right? So, you know, and obviously that makes, you know, creating bots and automating bots a lot easier, which is exactly what Amazon Games doesn't want, you know?
Yep. Yeah. This is a really strange topic, or it's a really difficult topic to talk about, because there is a lot of behavior that people do naturally that just looks fucking weird. Like,
yeah.
You know, and especially if they're trying to min-max things, and they're like, did I just get here too early in the route for it to have respawned, or did I do something wrong? They might look like they're doing something wrong just by, like, sitting there questioning their life choices about whether or not, like, a node is respawned or not.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. Yeah. You know, but it is obviously an effort that they are very interested in attacking. You know, I'm sure you guys have seen the massive hit to gold sellers over time. They still pop in every now and then, but there are so much fewer of them. And I think that this is a pretty solid. It's a pretty solid showing from them that, hey, they are serious on the gold selling front. There's many less of these phishing bots out there than there used to be. You know,
yeah,
a lot of this has to do with the, you know, family account sharing being disabled, you know, which was a loophole to get around bans and all kind of other stuff. You know, so now these accounts actually do have to pay
a premium, you know, to get back in.
Yeah, they got to pay $40 to get back in if they get banned. So
yeah,
it's
obviously when it comes, obviously that sort of stuff does generally tend to sort of increase. You know, the frequency of bots do generally tend to increase when there's a sale, because obviously, you know, the margins for you know, the outcomes that botters generally tend to sort of create bots in order to get and in order to utilize, their margins reduce when there's a sale on, when the game is reduced in price, obviously. So it's it shouldn't be surprising that there's you know, an increase in sort of like botting accounts occurring just after a, you know, a big sale and reduced price on the game. Like, that is just how that happens. Like, that happens in every single game. Like, I know that happened in PUBG, like, many times when PUBG was, like, reduced in price for various different things. Like, you just see an influx of, you know, of new hacking accounts and new botting accounts and that kind of thing. Like, it's just one of those things that comes hand in hand with a sale of some form.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's very, very much a thing, very important. You know, it's a difficult conversation to have. I keep saying strange, but it's a difficult conversation to have because not everybody has the same understanding of what actually is a bot. and many people have kind of this challenge of, you know, what looks like a bot might not actually be a bot because people are just weird. So, as I dive over to our show notes and look for what is our last topic, do we have another topic?
Oh, why isn't the socials thing working?
We had another
Is
topic.
it social?
Somewhere. What's that?
I don't know. Something's not working. The command's not working. I need to figure that out. Yeah, we had I think we had another one. It was a notice addressing server transfer tokens. Did we do that?
Yeah, I think we did that one.
We did kind of cover that a little bit. Oh, I mean, we could always, knock it out for some question and answers sort of session.
Yeah,
always do that.
Yeah, let's do some Q&A. Let's see what
Round
you
out-
guys want
round
to
out
talk
the
about.
show.
Yeah.
If you guys,
Yeah.
if you guys want to pick our brains as to how we feel about certain things, various different topics regarding UR, have at it. Like, I have my own perspective and sort of my own opinions regarding the faction system, because I kind of feel like the faction system is starting to feel starting to. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the faction system right now.
How do you feel about PvP balance? I think that the difference in between 500 gear score and 600 gear score is insane.
Yeah.
And like if you were going against somebody who has a substantially higher gear score than you are and even like within the same set of gear, so like T5 to T5, it just doesn't seem overly balanced. I often feel like I'm hitting people with a wet pool noodle, and in return getting hit with a tier 3 ballista. It makes no sense to me in a lot of circumstances. There's some hit registration problems with PvP as well, where you take a swing at somebody and their health bar doesn't even move. And it's like, I'm pretty sure I did 1,000 damage to them and nothing happened. Or like several stacks of damage.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, gear score isn't the be all and end all, but like it is definitely a contributing factor as to whether a side wins or loses. There's definitely still room for good coordinated tactical kind of gameplay, but like the thing is, if you're trying to be tactical and shit, and you're coming up against somebody who, very much like A said, is, an absolute brick tank, and, hitting dispatching that person is extremely difficult. And so your initial kind of tactics for something kind of falls flat. Just going at it with the same tactic, might not be the best sort of best idea. But being able to be flexible and mixing it up and coming up with a decent tactic to be able to deal with that kind of scenario that you've just encountered is kind of a good way to go. And I think the game still has enough room for that to occur. But gear score still does play a fair role with regards to how powerful a singular player is with respect to everyone else.
Absolutely.
That said, you don't need to actually grind it, because to some degree, if you know good crafters, they can make decent stuff for you.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Like it's very interesting. I often feel like using light armor, for instance, is nowhere near as powerful as just going full con and just Oonga Booga, attacking everything with the pocket healer.
Yeah, you got to have that healer though. You can't just be bringing your heals yourself and expecting it to like just sustain you through the fight.
Yes, true. Very true.
The mage build is not as powerful as it once was.
Like even with all of the nerfs, there's still top damage in almost everything. So, I still think that the Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff are still very viable. I think
the Ice Gauntlet still has a lot of utility. Definitely still has a lot of utility.
The other night I unexpectedly got my ass handed to me by a spear user. It's like, oh, he's got a spear, I'll be able to kick his ass. Like, no, I was not able to. That was I was completely unprepared for that, and it was comically bad on my part. And afterwards, the guy was like, I wasn't sure you were going to take that fight, and I was like, I'm not sure why I took that fight.
You should have just been like, honestly, I took that fight for the novelty of it, because it's very rare that you see someone using a spear. So, fair enough.
There's some good stuff. I think the weapons are a little bit more in balance. I think the great axe, warhammer needs to be less of whatever it is. Just less. Here's the thing. Here's my running motto when it comes to this. You can either deal damage or tank like a boss.
Yeah.
Never both. Like deal a lot of damage, glass cannon, or not die. Like, and like that's supposed to be the difference between light and heavy armor. The problem right now is that everybody just runs heavy in any kind of large combat situation. So like Outpost Rush, most people are just running heavy because you just survive. And surviving longer is more important because you can deal more damage over time. It's more likely for heals to land, etc. It's just like the benefits of being in light armor are just not high enough to actually provide you the benefits of to counter the benefits of staying alive longer for a full con build or full con heavy build. That said, there is also, in my opinion, a little bit too much CC coming off the hammers. They could probably use a little bit of a cooldown nerf.
There's a little bit, yeah. There's also, it's one of those things where I think it's kind of a little bit more difficult to kind of separate the one from the other kind of thing. But like, there's a lot of hammer abilities that provide obviously a lot of CC, but there's also a lot of damage that comes off the hammer as well, and it's kind of like it's awkward to separate one from the other, being able to sort of like, oh, you got a lot of damage, but like you can't have as much CC, or your CCs aren't as powerful as they are if you're like, heavy in damage sort of thing. Like, when you're talking about like, you should be able to either do damage or you should be heavy tank, but you shouldn't have both. Like, to some degree, I kind of feel like there should also be that with regards to doing damage and doing CC. Like, if you're doing a lot of CC, you should not like be able to deal that much damage, and vice versa. If you're doing a lot of damage, your CC shouldn't be that punitive, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But it's difficult to do when the weapon itself is kind of both at the same time, which very much is the case when it comes to, say, the hammer and the great axe, for example. Kind of recently we've seen a lot more people using things like whirlwind and stuff like that, mainly because recent patches have actually added grit to whirlwind, so and that's caused that particular kind of ability to be utilized a lot more. But, yeah, I honestly don't know how to kind of like separate the whole CCs from the power and damage potential of certain weapons. It's a difficult one.
It definitely is a different one, that's for sure. Let's see. Any other questions? Like, I'm curious what you guys want to hear about. I'll wait awkwardly too.
I was going to say, like, that's a kind of a, you're tempting that awkward kind of silence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Solid contributions to chat there, mate.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, it's not the fact that like you're saying fuck New World. It's just the fact that you're trying to actually circumvent the auto mod.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why I just timed you out, dude.
Yes.
You can
so
say
this is
New
the
World
new patch,
sucks.
by the way.
That wouldn't get you timed out. That wouldn't get you, trying to circumvent the auto mod. And you could say that all you want. You try to circumvent it, and I'm gonna punch you down on that one.
Mm-hmm. For those that are just joining, the patch is up. The patch notes are up. They're in the chat there. We covered them earlier in the show. We just want to make sure that we're, right now we're doing kind of a Q&A. So if you guys have questions that you want to ask and just want to generally have the discussion about, let's open it up. Let's have that conversation. Let's dive into the stuff that you guys care about.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, heaven forbid, Ace will start talking about Arcane again.
Hey, there's a sizable possibility that could happen anyways.
Please spare us from that.
And I mean, I'm actually going to run the same poll that I ran earlier if I can find the button for it. Right. So I'm very curious.
So I don't actually think that there is going to be a DPS weapon with focus as a primary stat. The only reason for that is because, when you have the life staff as primary focus for as the focus attribute, like if you do a heavy DPS weapon with focus, then you basically have both heavy DPS and amazing healing at the same time. And as we said kind of previously, it's one of those things, it's one of those sort of like it's one of those aspects
survivability
of
or damage,
like, balance. It's one of those aspects of like balance where you want one or the other but not both.
There are ways, like for instance, you can use an amber gem to get the other items to to scale off of focus, or at least a percentage of the damage to focus off of it. I think that's.
But it's limited. It's never going to be as good as say taking that weapon, that damage weapon, and pumping the correct stats into it, right?
So late to the party, but I was curious, what do you guys best guess when the server merges or transfer tokens version 2 is going to roll out? No, it's a shot in the dark. What do you guys think would be ready? So in the patch notes today, they say they're laying the technical groundwork for server merges, which tells me that they've identified any prior issues and are basically ensuring that the proper stuff is set up. This is, of course, something that, like, when it comes to server merges, if you fuck it up, you potentially lose everyone's data. Like, there is a large scale opportunity to piss off a massive portion of your player base if this goes wrong.
And it's not just like, sorry, we fucked up, you can't use the trading post for 5 days. It's, sorry, we fucked up. Yeah, your characters are entirely wiped. All of that, like 300, 400 hours, maybe 600, 700 hours that you put into sort of maxing out your character and doing this, that, and the other. Yeah, it's all wiped. Sorry about that, but never mind. You can carry on. You can play it again. like people would just go ballistic.
Yeah. That would be real bad. So when do I think this is going to happen? I hope that the December release also comes with server merges, and I would assume that at the same time, to prevent issues where certain companies are actively trying to avoid other companies, that there will be people, or that they will likely offer round 2 of server transfers. And then at some point after that, they'll likely probably start selling server transfer tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my bet. I bet that server merges start in December. Which I know sounds like, for anybody who's like me, that sounds a long ways away, but that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah,
we're in December now. We're in the end game. It's coming next month.
Okay, it's coming next month. How far is next month? It's literally a few hours away.
Yep. So I would assume that this is also going to lay the groundwork. They're going to test it on some smaller servers to see if any problems exist, and then from there they turn around and start. When they're confident that it's not causing a problem, they'll turn around and start merging a bunch of servers together, and we've been hoping for this as long as everybody else has, because obviously the lower player count means Outpost Rush doesn't pop as often. It means the market's not as balanced as it should be. Like I personally today on our server, I destroyed the lodestone market. It's like 2 gold a piece more than it should be. Which it shouldn't cost that much anyways. Like, it shouldn't cost 2 gold a piece. Like, the more people that are contributing to that market, the better. And, it also means more people will be having houses, which means owning territory becomes more valuable, which means having more people on the server spread out with their housing and spread out with their marketing and all of that is going to allow for more territories to upgrade to T5, instead of what's currently happening where they hit kind of a break-even point where it's no longer worth the territory upgrading beyond a certain point because it now costs them too much in upkeep versus what they're actually bringing in. I'm also anticipating that there's going to be some kind of buff given to territory owners for income in the December release. Be very curious to see what that is, but
hopefully they don't screw that up.
Yes, hopefully they don't screw that up. Till then, the nice thing that's still happening is the reduction on housing costs, which didn't decrease the amount that companies make for people having territory in their or having houses in their territory, but just decreased the amount that the player pays. So it's actually a pretty cool system and has worked out pretty well. Yeah. I know I've actually been able to afford my rent for once. Because I spend basically all of the gold that I have, I spend on buying stuff from the market to make leveling some of my other skills go faster. But yeah. So I want to, because we have a lot of people here, I want to ask a question to people. We often in the pre-show have kind of more of like a variety hour where we talk about a bunch of different topics, a bunch of different games. I'd be very curious to see if people would be interested in more of like a variety show talking about gaming and other gaming related news, or like entertainment related news, kind of like Attack of the Show style, potentially venturing into additional content beyond our New World content. I'm going to kick off a poll here to ask that. And yeah.
You found that button and you're like loving it right now.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, we want to create content that's based around what you guys want to watch.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, like, I obviously have a bias of what I'd like to create, but at the same time, like, hey, thanks for the sub. Much appreciated, guys.
Thank you, Alex.
That's our primary goal, is we want to create stuff that you guys want to watch. So if this comes back with a overwhelming no, then
Then okay, fair enough.
the pre-show was almost unanimously positive.
But that's probably because we've
Yeah.
we're basically almost doing that kind of stuff to them at that point. So yeah,
It wouldn't be in we would still have this show, so it'd still be covering New World. This would be an additional show on a different night of the week.
Yeah, it's always additive.
Yep.
We wouldn't just randomly, okay, well, we're ditching this show. No, that's not gonna. That ain't gonna happen.
Yep. So poll should be up. I'm very curious what your guys' opinions are. I think anybody can vote in it. I didn't set any restrictions on it, so the more the merrier.
Yeah.
But yeah. Looking through, making sure I'm not missing any questions from chat here either.
Right.
Did anyone not have their taxes go to 2% for housing? The funny part of that was it was supposed to be a tax break for the players, and it still very much is. Even at its low end, it's still the absolute maximum that a player will pay, even for a $20,000 house, is still 300 gold at the max tax rate you can put up right now. At the low end, prior to that, if you had it at server average, at least on our server, it was 1,000 gold. So you're still getting 70% reduction. But territories are able to pull in an actual meaningful amount of money by upping their tax rate to something that obviously players can still very much afford.
Yeah.
Will you specialize in your gaming news, MMO themed, or be broad in gaming? I think obviously we're MMO players, but I have a history as a semi-competitive sponsored first-person shooter gamer. So I wouldn't be against covering stuff like that. In our pre-show today, some of the games we covered were Star Citizen, Cyberpunk, and
I think
I'll consistently take swipes at CCP games, so that's a continuing trend you should expect from all of our content anytime I'm on the show. But that comes from 10 years of bitter relations. So
he's just so bitter about it.
Yes.
But I think when it comes to me, I don't mind talking about just general kind of gaming news, but I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to talk critically or sort of very specifically about areas of general gaming that I don't really sort of partake in.
Mm-hmm.
So say racing games, that kind of thing. I like them, but I don't generally tend to do them that much. I don't have a racing wheel. I don't have the whole kind of all the gear and stuff like that for it. So it's one of those things that I probably wouldn't be able to talk critically about. But FPS games, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the other kind of categories that we'd be interested in covering would be entertainment. So what's upcoming that we should be looking forward to? What new movies, or series League of Legends Arcane, which I've been recommending for the last since I saw the first 3 episodes. I've basically been hooked, and I'm looking forward to season 2, which has already been greenlit, and I could dive into that so easily and have conversations about the depth of that.
Yeah.
But hey, we got our poll result.
Yeah.
Yes, 12-4.
Yeah, nice.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. That's a resounding yes on both times we've asked. So
that's somewhat consistent. So that's cool, man. Thank you.
Keep an eye on the Discord. We'll likely have news on this sooner rather than later. Because
actually talking about that, anybody who's been a long time kind of fan of the show and fan of what we kind of generally tend to do, you guys know that we have done reviews of the Game Awards and sort of, every so often other kind of like gaming like virtual gaming convention kind of stuff. We are likely, as far as I know, Ace, like you haven't said anything negative about it. Like I think we're still potentially going to be doing co-streaming the Game Awards. So we'll do our like running commentary about it. It might not be on Twitch. It might be on YouTube. I don't know. We were kind of like we're wondering whether to do it on Twitch or YouTube. If you guys want input on that, like or want to sort of give us input on that, that would be fantastic. But yeah, we likely will do that.
Absolutely. And that probably isn't. Obviously, New World is a game that was launched this year, but we're not anticipating New World to win any awards at the Video Game Awards. But it'll be cool to see who does, as well as cover a lot of the world premieres that happen during that. So that'll be a cool show to have, and that'll be exciting. What about trophies and furnishing? They actually just that was in the patch notes today as well. They are re-enabling trading, moving, and salvaging of furnishing and housing items.
And that includes trophies.
Mm-hmm.
So get on it.
Yep.
And I think, Ace, you are a League of Legends player. I'm not.
I'm a former League of Legends player. I haven't played in a couple of years. Occasionally, people will convince me to play.
Yeah, becoming more tired.
I don't think I ever made it past gold. I had at one point I had 2 or 3 accounts, because that's what everybody does. Is you torpedo your rank on a couple of them so you can play against scrubs and just practice. But or no, I totally didn't do that. Good times.
Yeah,
good times. Yeah. That said, I do actually quite enjoy the lore around League of Legends, so it's been kind of a fun experience. And my main, so the 3 characters that I kind of mained was, if I was top lane, I would either play Nasus or Vi, and I would jungle with Vi, and from there I would also use Shaco in the jungle. So I was very much a troll type player, or like Nasus is just slowly build up and just build up your Q and just eventually start hitting people for 4K with your Q. Hysterical. Yes, the notes are out. Here's the link to them. Some good stuff. It's a relatively small patch compared to most things, but do remember that it is a holiday, or was over the course of a holiday. So there's some good changes. There's some good groundwork that they mentioned that they're putting in terms of technical groundwork for server merges. That's huge news. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. The patch starts tonight at 2 a.m. Pacific time, or 2 a.m. Eastern time, sorry. Because the link auto sets for my time zone, which is kind of nice. And yeah, it'll be good. So I want to take a moment. I want to thank all of our Patreons. I want to thank everybody who's hit the subscribe button, everybody who's hit the follow button. There's a ton of you guys. Please, that support is vital to continuing what we do. Continuing to invest in the channel and the content that we aim to bring you guys. I can't say thank you enough. 2 months ago we were streaming to 20 to 30 people, and now we stream to much more, and I infinitely thankful for that. I'm also thankful for our partnership with our partnership and membership on the
With Studio Loot.
Yes, with Studio Loot and newworldfans.com. It really is awesome. And we really do appreciate that partnership.
Yeah, they've been putting together some pretty decent sort of stuff. Like they did a recent video about decent Void Gauntlet kind of builds, as well as how a good methodology on how to level up your various different weapons, including the Void Gauntlet as well. So you should check that out. Definitely check that out. I'll drop a link actually.
Mm-hmm. So with that, the drops, I believe the Royal Fisher drop is still active through till tomorrow. It's what the community needs to do to get it. I'm reading this directly off of their thing. Is watch 1 hour and claim the reward, the Royal Fisher, of any YouTube or any Twitch channel that has the drops turned on, which ours is turned on, so you are earning time towards that 1 hour. You might already have it, so it's worth checking your inventory to see if you have it already. So, with that, that's everything that we prepared for tonight. If you guys want to continue the discussion, we'll be in Discord after the show. And like I can't say this enough. Thank you all. It really is an awesome experience doing this, and I hope you guys have a great time, and we will see you in the New World.